I started at Volkswagen in 2012. My father worked there for 30 years, my uncle too. When I got the job, my dad shook my hand and said, "Now you're set. VW doesn't let people go." He looks down at the badge. I believed him. Last year, they cut my entire department. 12 years, just gone. He picks up the badge, turns it over. I thought German companies were different. In March 2024, Volkswagen warns of potential German factory closures. In August 2024, BMW slashes profit outlook amid significant headwinds. In October 2024, BASF redirects billions in investment to Asia. In December 2024, German industrial employment minus 124,000 jobs in 1 year. In February 2025, German industrial production falls 4.3% in single month. One by one, the headlines piled up, and the world started asking the same question. How could Germany, the country that built Europe's richest economy, the engineering capital of the world, the place where "made in Germany" meant the absolute best, suddenly look fragile? It happened so fast. 1 year everything's stable, the next year this. But here's the thing. It didn't happen fast. It happened slowly, one gear at a time, for years. And nobody noticed until it was too late. This isn't a story about Germany, not really. This is the story of a machine. For 70 years, Germany built the greatest industrial engine the world had ever seen. Automobiles, chemicals, machinery, precision tools. It employed millions, generated trillions, made Germany untouchable. And it ran on 5 systems. 1. Cheap energy from Russia, giving Germany a structural cost advantage in chemicals, steel, glass, and heavy manufacturing. 2. Booming demand from China, buying German machines, cars, and industrial expertise by the billions. 3. Automotive dominance, the core of the entire industrial ecosystem, spinning off thousands of suppliers. 4. Deep supplier clusters, making Germany's factories more efficient, more integrated, more competitive than anyone else's. 5. Stable rules that rewarded exactly what Germany was best at: precision, engineering, manufacturing scale, long-term investment. As long as those 5 systems held, Germany was unstoppable. But machines aren't built to adapt. They're built to optimize, to do one thing perfectly, in one specific environment. And when that environment changes, optimization becomes obsolescence. Because once the cascade starts, it doesn't matter how good your engineers are. It doesn't matter how strong your brands are. It doesn't matter how much history you have. The only question that matters is, which gear broke first? If you ask anyone what went wrong with Germany, they'll tell you energy. And they're not wrong. For 2 decades, cheap Russian pipeline gas gave Germany something no other Western economy had: a structural cost advantage in energy-heavy industries, chemicals, steel, glass, automotive manufacturing. When that model collapsed, costs exploded. Germany now pays 2 to 3 times what its competitors pay for industrial power. Germany, 15 to 20 cents per kilowatt hour. United States, around 8 cents. China, around 7 cents. That's not a 10% disadvantage. That's a structural handicap. For a company like BASF, where electricity is 30 to 40% of production costs, that kind of increase isn't just painful, it's existential. Which is why BASF's latest capital plan included billions for a new site in China and significantly less investment than before in Germany. So yes, energy got expensive. Yes, factories struggled. Yes, margins disappeared. But here's what almost nobody understood. Energy wasn't the problem. Energy was the symptom. Because what Germany actually lost wasn't cheap gas. It was the entire trade model built on top of it. For 20 years, Germany ran the ultimate economic arbitrage. Buy cheap energy from Russia, use it to build advanced industrial goods, sell those goods to China at high margins, reinvest the profits back into the industrial base. It was brilliant until it became a trap. When Russia became unreliable and China became a competitor, both sides of the trade collapsed simultaneously. Germany had optimized for a world that no longer existed. And when you lose your arbitrage, you don't just lose margin, you lose the reason companies stay. But if everyone knew energy got expensive, why didn't Germany just adapt? Because there's a constraint almost no one outside Europe understands. Germany's constitution limits government borrowing to 0.35% of GDP per year. It's called the debt brake. While the United States ran 6 to 7% deficits to fund massive industrial subsidies, semiconductors, batteries, green energy, Germany tied its own hands. Germany needs an estimated 600 billion euros for grid upgrades, rail modernization, digital infrastructure, and industrial transformation. But it can't borrow enough to fund it without breaking its own constitution. So while competitors were spending their way into the next industrial era, Germany was debating whether it was legally allowed to. And that brings us to the second system that failed. The second gear that broke? China. At least that's what the headlines say. Germany loses China market. Chinese competition crushes German exports. And it's true. Chinese companies like BYD didn't just enter the EV and battery market, they reshaped it. BYD sold 3.02 million EVs in 2024. Volkswagen, 771,000. The gap isn't closing, it's widening. In August 2025, German auto output dropped so sharply it dragged total industrial production down 4.3% in a single month. So yes, China is winning the EV race. Germany is losing automotive dominance. But here's what people miss. Germany didn't lose China. Germany created its own competitor. For decades, Germany helped China industrialize, sold machinery, transferred expertise, built joint ventures. German engineers literally taught Chinese factories how to build at global scale. It made sense at the time. China was the customer. Germany was the supplier. The deal was simple. You buy our machines, we help you build your factories. Everyone wins. Except, students eventually graduate. By 2025, China wasn't just buying German machines anymore. It was outcompeting German products, building better batteries, cheaper EVs, faster supply chains. And it was using the same playbook Germany taught it: vertical integration, subsidized scale, export dominance. Germany spent 30 years building the world's most dangerous competitor. Now it has to compete with its own student, but it gets worse. Because the rules of competition changed too. Germany's auto industry isn't just an industry. It's the industrial core. It employs millions, directly and indirectly, generates hundreds of billions in exports, and feeds an entire ecosystem of suppliers, logistics firms, and regional economies. For a century, cars rewarded what Germany was best at: mechanical precision, engine quality, manufacturing discipline. That was Germany's territory, its moat, its competitive advantage. But the new competition? It's being decided by batteries, software, AI and autonomous systems, semiconductors, charging infrastructure, and user experience. Which means the definition of what makes a great car changed. And when the rules change, old strengths can become new weaknesses. Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, they're not bad at EVs, they're just late. And in technology, late is the same as wrong. So yes, EVs are disrupting Germany. Yes, the transition is brutal. But the real problem? The real problem isn't electric cars. It's that the entire industrial model was designed for a world where cars rewarded what Germany was best at. And that world is gone. Because in Germany, cars aren't just cars. They're the center of gravity for the entire industrial system. When car production is strong, the whole system thrives. But when car production slows, the shock spreads outward. Suppliers lose orders. Steel demand weakens. Chemical plants run below capacity. Logistics firms lose volume. Machine tool builders see fewer new orders. Regional employment falls. Tax revenue drops. In 2025, Germany lost an estimated 124,000 industrial jobs. Automotive alone, about 50,000. But it's not just jobs. It's the cluster effect, the thing that made Germany's industrial regions so powerful in the first place. When the cluster breaks, costs rise for everyone left behind. Suppliers lose economies of scale. Specialized workers leave. Infrastructure sits underutilized. And once that spiral starts, it's incredibly hard to reverse. So if Germany is losing factories, jobs, competitive edge, where is it all going? Here's what nobody talks about. Every factory that leaves Germany lands somewhere else. Poland absorbs automotive suppliers. Vietnam gets electronics assembly lines. The U.S. wins semiconductor fabs and battery plants, thanks to hundreds of billions in CHIPS Act and IRA subsidies. Mexico becomes the new export gateway to North America. And China? China isn't just competing with Germany anymore. It's replacing Germany in emerging markets: machinery, chemicals, industrial goods, the markets Germany used to own by default. Germany's loss isn't disappearing into thin air. It's being strategically harvested by countries that built cheaper energy, faster permitting, bigger subsidies, and better industrial policy. Building a chemical plant in Germany takes 3 to 5 years of permits. In China, 18 months. In Texas, 24 months with tax breaks. If you're BASF and you need to build a new plant, the math is brutal. Germany isn't just competing with other companies anymore. It's competing with entire state strategies. And this is where everything clicks. Because we've been talking about energy, China, cars, factories, but none of that is the real story. We've spent the last 12 minutes talking about German factories, German cars, German energy, German workers. But none of those are the real story. The real story is that Germany perfected an economy built for the 20th century, just as the world quietly entered the 21st. Energy didn't break the machine. China didn't break the machine. EVs didn't break the machine. What broke the machine was that the rules of industrial competition changed, and the machine was too perfectly designed for the old rules to adapt. The old rules rewarded precision over speed, cost discipline over subsidized scale, mechanical excellence over software integration, energy as a commodity over energy as strategy, and trade openness over industrial policy. The new rules? They're the exact opposite. That's the moment everything clicks. And if you want proof that this is real, don't listen to politicians. Don't listen to press releases. Watch the market. German DAX companies have underperformed the S&P 500 by roughly 40% over the past 5 years. Volkswagen's market cap? About 50 billion euros. Tesla's? 800 billion euros. BASF's stock? Down roughly 60% from its 2017 peak. Bond markets are pricing in stagnation. The smart money isn't waiting for Germany to recover, it's already repositioning. So the question is there a way back? There is a bull case, and it's stronger than most people think, because Germany still has something rare: depth. The Mittelstand. Thousands of small and mid-sized firms, hidden champions that dominate hyper-specialized global niches, industrial lasers, precision sensors, automation components, medical devices, machine tools. Germany still holds 47% of the global market share in machine tools. These companies don't make headlines, but they make the machines that make everything else. And if Germany can fuse that expertise with the new industrial stack, AI-driven manufacturing, advanced robotics, green hydrogen, next-generation materials, defense technology, it can rebuild, not as a high-volume, low-cost manufacturer, but as a high-margin, high-tech industrial innovator. The pieces are there, the expertise is there, The question is, can Germany move fast enough? Because time is the one thing it doesn't have. I'm not angry. I mean, I was, at first, but now I just feel, I don't know. My father's generation, they rebuilt this country from nothing. They made Volkswagen what it was. And I thought if I worked hard, if I did my part, that would continue. But the company isn't the same anymore. Decisions take longer. Projects get delayed. Everyone knows something needs to change, but no one knows how. The machine didn't break overnight, and it won't be rebuilt overnight either. Germany still knows how to build things the world trusts. The question is whether it can reinvent what those things are, and whether it has enough time. Germany isn't the first industrial giant to believe its advantages would last forever. Britain once believed that, ruled the seas, built the world's factories, controlled global trade. Then Germany and America out-innovated it. America once believed that, dominated steel, automobiles, manufacturing. The world bought American. Then Japan perfected lean production, and the jobs moved. Japan once believed that, became the world's technology leader. The future was Japanese. Then it stagnated for 30 years while Korea and China rose. Now Germany faces the same question every industrial power eventually confronts. Can a country reinvent itself before the system that made it rich becomes obsolete? Because the machine doesn't care about legacy. It doesn't care about reputation. It doesn't care about history. It only cares whether you can still compete. Germany built the world's greatest industrial engine. The question now is whether it can build the next one. Economic miracles don't last forever, but neither do declines. The question is always the same. Can you rebuild before the old machine stops? If you want to follow how this story unfolds, hit subscribe, because this is just the beginning.